Today on Crested Butte is home. We will be talking with Neil Beltchenko, and he's a guy who likes to ride his bike fast, and he likes to ride it far. And when I say that, I mean he likes to do bikepacking races. So, for instance, he's ridden from Banff, Alberta, Canada, all the way down to Mexico as one example. He's also ridden the Colorado Trail race, the Arizona Trail race. He's ridden in Scotland, and in this last winter, he even rode in Alaska for a wintertime multi-day race. So that's who we're going to be talking to, and among other things, he and his wife were the founders of Bikepacking magazine, and you can find that online. And this September in Gunnison, he and Lindsay will be holding a bikepacking summit. So it's a multi-day chance for bikepackers to get together and talk about all things bikepacking, which, by the way, is basically loading up all your backpacking gear onto your bike and then riding it wherever you'd like. So anyway, hopefully this is a good episode. This is the first one that I recorded, and I did notice that I apparently have a little bit of a nervous tick and breathe a little bit too much. So anyway, hopefully that isn't annoying. And on to the show. All right, we're here with Neil Beltchenko, and so Neil, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, first off. I guess my name's Neil. I'm 30 years old, and I'm originally from the Chicagoland area, Libertyville, Illinois. Grew up there basically for 20 years. And yeah, as a kid, parents brought me out camping. I had a BMX bike, went off the BMX jumps in the backyard all the time. I was a super active kid, played a lot of baseball, played lacrosse, and and that's basically the childhood in a nutshell. And then, I played a little bit of baseball in high school, played some lacrosse in high school as well, but moved on to, once I graduated high school, went to school at Northern Michigan University for a year before I came out and transferred to Gunnison, to Western.
Yeah. Okay. Where were you going camping?
Upper Peninsula, Northwoods, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I actually grew up going to a camp called Camp Jorn up in Manitowish Waters, Wisconsin, and so that was like a big influence in my outdoor lifestyle as well.
Yeah. So when you were there, were you were BMX riding, but no mountain biking, I assume?
No mountain biking. I had a like a Specialized hard rock. I got one of those in high school, and I didn't really ride it on trails. I just rode it to and from school.
Yeah.
But before, rewind to like middle school and elementary, I always rode this Schwinn XS. It had pegs on the back, but there's like this like small trail system behind my house, which my house backed up to a park, which was convenient enough.
Yeah.
And so there was like a bunch of jumps, and kind of long story short, I kind of stopped doing all that stuff after I broke my wrist because my mom was so pissed off at me. She's like, "No, you can't. You shouldn't be doing that anymore." I ran right into a tree.
Right. So no more riding.
Yeah.
So when did you pick up mountain biking? Was that at Western that you started to pick up that bug more then?
Believe it or not. So I graduated in 2010, and I hadn't ridden a mountain bike in Gunnison at all.
Oh, really?
When I went to school down there.
Okay.
So the first time I rode a bike was I rented one from Peak Sports when that was around up on the mountain.
Yeah.
And it was like a Trek Fuel EX8 or something EX5 or 6, one of their demo bikes. 26er, 2010. And I went with my now wife, Lindsay, and we just kind of pedaled up the mountain. And when I got on the bike, started climbing, I looked back and I had this huge gap on her, And right then and there, I was just like, oh my God, this is so much fun. And I hadn't even gone downhill yet. I was just like, I loved climbing.
Huh, you like the climbing part.
Yeah. So yeah, essentially, 2010 was my first like real mountain bike experience.
Was she into it, and she told you that
she was into it, just not nearly as much as me.
But she helped you to rent that bike that day.
Yeah, we rented bikes together.
Oh, so she didn't have one either then. So
no, yeah, we both
were...
didn't. Yeah, okay. Exactly. We were kind of both on the same page. Like, yeah, and
gotcha.
I did a little bit of rock climbing and a bunch of hiking in college, but mainly just like drinking and having fun.
Fair enough. All right, so you rent a bike, and then now you do all these long distance bike rides and races. So how'd that transformation occur?
That's a good question. I think one thing kind of led to the next. So after that moment, I was like, all right, well, I just need to. So then the next year, I bought a bike, and I'm trying to think of how it all unfolded. Yeah, so I signed up for the Crested Butte Classic. That was my first bike race ever, 100 miles.
So that's at the end of like summer number
exactly,
1?
Yes.
Okay.
So end of summer number 1, I had like a full year of biking under my belt. And I had a friend, Stu Gross, at the time. He was actually a coworker of mine. He was like, dude, we should go biking. Like, he was big into racing and stuff like that. So he kind of inspired me a little bit. And then, so I did this race, and I remember I felt pretty good. This was back when it was like, the first loop was Strand and Deer Creek. The second loop was 401, 403. The third loop was Dyke.
Yeah.
And so like, once I got back from the 401, 403 loop, I think I was in like, I don't know, 6th place or something like that. And I remember passing on the way up Kevlar, I passed Billy Laird. And he's like, dude, you're crushing it. He's like, what's your name? I was like, Neil Beltchenko. He's like, oh, well, cool, we'll keep going. So I passed him, and then I ended up catching up to Ox and Evan and Ross, and passed Evan, and Ox just hammered it out, and I ended up taking 4th, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's awesome for
that race. Yeah, and so after that, it was just like, wow, maybe I'm good at racing. So I kind of explored a few more options.
Yeah.
But as far as like the whole bike packing racing, ultra endurance races, the following spring, so maybe like 5 months later, I raced the Arizona Trail Race 300, and I performed really well in that, despite like blowing up my fork and having to buy like a new fork on trail and
in the middle of the race.
In the middle of the race, yeah. Uh-huh. So like, I knew physically I was there, but like, mentally getting over those hurdles are such a tough thing to do, especially in these bikepacking races when you're, the clock is, it's not stopping, and basically you just have to kind of deal with all of these peaks and valleys, and when the valleys, like your fork breaks, it's difficult.
Right. So we should probably start out, go back to the beginning a little bit. And what is bikepacking for people who don't know, and what are some of these bikepacking races? How long are they, and all that?
Yeah. So essentially, bikepacking is kind of like a piggyback off bike touring, and I would describe it more as like off-road bike touring. So you're on dirt, you're on single track, you're off-road for the most part. You're using a full suspension bike. You're using bags that are not necessarily a full suspension bike, but you're using more of a mountain bike. You're using bags that are lighter, don't pack as much, aren't as bulky, like using a rack and panniers. I think it's just kind of like the evolution of bike touring. That's kind of what it's fallen under, is bike packing now.
Yeah.
And then as far as the bike pack racing, a lot of people don't bike pack race. It's totally fine. I happen to love it. And so there's just a handful of these races. They're kind of like underground races. There's no entry fees. But it's they're completely self-supported. So it's like you and the trail. The clock starts when you guys start, and the clock stops when we all finish. It's a unique kind of form of racing, but it's super, super fun.
So let's talk about some of these races you like. What are some of your favorite races, and just some good stories about some of these races that you've done.
So I've done quite a few. There's, I guess probably the three most popular ones out there are the Arizona Trail Race, and that's typically in the spring. The Colorado Trail Race, which is typically midsummer, and the Tour Divide, which is actually sandwiched in between those two. And yeah, both, the Arizona Trail Race and the Colorado Trail Race are more single track oriented. Uh-huh. The Tour Divide is basically all dirt road, but it's extremely long. It's from Banff to Antelope Wells, New Mexico. It's like 2,700 miles. And yeah, so those are like the three most popular, and those are definitely like the ones that people like have on their radar, and those are the three of my favorite races I've done.
And Colorado Trail Race is 500 something, Durango to Denver.
Yeah, it's like 540.
And then all of a sudden Arizona's longer than that, right?
Arizona is now like 760.
And that's north to south? Is that how that rolls? Or
it rolls from south to north. I'm not 100% sure why. I think it just rides better that way. But finishing at the Grand Canyon is way easier than apparently starting. I haven't done it south to north or north to south ever. But yeah, the unique thing about the Arizona Trail Race is you can't let a bike tire touch inside the Grand Canyon.
Right.
So you have to put it on your back, which is turns into more of an adventure race than a bike race, because you're walking 7 miles down, 7 miles across, and 7 miles up.
In the middle of it with your bike on your pack.
Yep.
Which is at least it's allowed, because wilderness.
You're
not even allowed to take your bike
apart.
Yeah,
exactly.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
So, how do you? And you touched on this a little bit, but mentally, like, how does this all roll? I'm thinking of, like, I've done some hikes by myself at night, and like every little noise is probably a grizzly bear in my head and all this stuff. So how do you cope with all that, being solo and tired? And...
Well, I would say, it's like anything you get used to. Like you, for instance, you're like an avid backcountry skier, and hiking up to the top of a 14er and skiing down. Probably the last one you did, the last one you did, you're like, all right, I've kind of got the hang of this. I know what to do.
Right.
I know what to bring. I know how to mentally prepare.
Yeah.
So it's like anything. You kind of get used to it. Like I said before, there's a ton of peaks and valleys, and you are completely on your own. So it's frustrating at times. It's scary at times. It's elating. It's amazing. It's like the best thing you can ever imagine at other times.
Right.
So it's just something that the reason I do it is just because it's like a great way to see my natural surroundings relatively quickly. I used to be into backpacking in college and stuff like that, and this kind of was like a natural progression. I was able to pack all these things onto my bike and go cover 10 times the mileage that day.
Yeah. So when you're going, you're kind of at the mercy of the weather, which is a little bit tough. Like if I'm going to ride something above tree line, I'm going to wait for a good forecast, but you're just going. So you just keep going right in the face of these thunderstorms up above tree line?
No, not necessarily. I've definitely been caught in some pretty nasty storms, like right above tree line. One instance, Kokomo Pass, I think it was like 4 years ago. I was racing from Durango to Denver on the Colorado Trail, and I was with another racer, and this huge storm just came blasting through. One of the classic Colorado monsoon storms, dropping tons of hail, tons of rain, lightning. Yeah, and basically we just had to hunker down by tree line and just stay there, just wrap ourselves up in our rain gear and just wait.
So you did wait it out.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
A lot of times though, like up in the Coney's Cataract segment, there's not much to.
That's an all day or
exactly.
above tree line down there.
So I remember, like, I forget what year it was, a few years back. I was up there, and there's a bunch of people kind of hanging out by tree line because there's a handful of storms going through, and I was like, well, there wasn't any lightning. It was just like a downpour. It was like one of those storms that just was hanging around.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm just going to go. And those guys were hanging out. And, it just rained on me. And it was just, I couldn't see around me. But
but it didn't get worse.
It didn't get worse. Yeah.
Fair enough.
There's instances like that. And then another one, like going into last year, I went to Scotland and raced the Highland Trail race 550, which is like probably one of the more like well-known bikepacking races in Europe. And it rained basically like 60-70% of the time. And you have to keep going. You have to keep going.
Gotcha. On this episode's Crested Butte Real Estate Minute, which is recorded in May of 2018, I'd like to talk a little bit about land in the Crested Butte area. And for that, I mean everything from Crested Butte South up through Mount Crested Butte. And in the last year, there have been 140 sales with a median price of $160,000. And when you compare that to the previous year, so in other words, 12 to 24 months out, there are only 80 sold. So that's a 73% increase in the number of vacant land parcels that have sold. So you can tell there's a lot of interest in land right now, and that's primarily because of the lack of inventory in homes. People aren't finding what they want, so they're thinking about buying land and building and starting fresh. So, despite that, though, there is a lot of inventory when it comes to vacant land. In fact, it would take 2 years for the present inventory to sell completely out at the present pace of buying and selling. So, and also, it's not anywhere near the prices that they were back in 2008 before the real estate crash. So, there's still a lot of value to be had in land. If you have any questions, please contact me. I am Frank Consella, the host of this podcast, and my website is crestedbutterealestateagent.com. Happy to answer any questions you might have about buying or selling real estate. And let's get back to the podcast. Moving on, you started Bikepacker magazine as well, so tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah, so what was it? 2013, I think. Lindsay and I were driving to Denver, and I had a blog, and I wasn't like much of a writer, but I just wanted to share my experiences with people.
Yeah.
And Lindsay has like a graphic design background, and she's got that kind of brain. She's a marketing guru.
Uh-huh.
And so we were like, all right, well, let's like kind of join forces and create some sort of like a blog for bikepacking, because there hadn't really been anything around. And there was bikepacking.net, which was like a super old, like outdated website, but it like everybody used it for the forums, and people still use that for the forums.
Yeah.
But outside of like bikepacking.net, there was nothing around other than personal blogs. So Lindsay and I launched bikepackersmagazine.com in I think 2013, late 2000 or 13, 14, I forget.
Okay.
And it like blew up. Like the first day I think we had like 500 new Facebook likes when we launched, and we're like, wow. People are like super interested in this.
Cool.
And it grew like, every day we posted something. So, kind of the evolution of that was we ended up changing the name to bikepacker.com, bought like a shorter URL and revamped the website. And then there was a bunch of other competition that came up. There was like Bunyan Velo, which is I think it started as like a print magazine, a bikepacking print magazine. And then it went to like I think it was like an annual magazine or something like that, or twice a year they launched this really cool, like, awesome photos, great writing pieces, good stories. And then Logan Watts he had a personal blog called Pedaling Nowhere. He basically purchased bikepacking.com URL, and then it was like him and us like kind of like always fighting over content and stuff like that. And essentially, like Lindsay and I kind of ran out of time and energy, and so Logan and us just recently merged our websites.
So everything now is Bikepacking.
Bikepacking.com. Our website, as of May 2nd, is still around. It's bikepacker.com, but it's under his, he can kind of do whatever he wants to do with it. He's got a bunch of content that he needs to merge over to bikepacking.com.
Gotcha.
And then there's a bunch of duplicate content that's just going to, go in the trash.
Right.
But Lindsay and I now contribute for him, so it's
makes sense.
We still have a piece of it a little bit.
Yeah.
But we have way more time on our hands.
Yeah.
Which is super important.
I definitely understand that. So is it mostly gear that was on there, or trip reports, or both? Or
everything, gear, trip reports, routes. We were trying to publish routes.
Okay.
And when say Kona bikes, they launched a video that was kind of around the bikepacking world. We embed that and chat with them, maybe get an interview from the featured athlete in the video.
Yeah.
And
okay.
Yeah, just we were trying to be creative and create this resource and inspiration for all of these people. And I guess the main, when Lindsay and I really started to think about this whole idea, the main thing was there were so many awesome routes that people don't know about outside of the Arizona Trail Race, outside of the Colorado Trail Race, outside of the Tour Divide, Great Divide mountain bike route. And we wanted to feature all of these amazing bikepacking bag manufacturers because there was a ton of them popping up. You had Revelate Design, who most people know about, but there's just tons in Colorado and tons throughout the world that people had no idea where they were.
Right.
So we introduced their website, and we introduced a specific bag. We would get a bag in for review and review it, and it would they would sell out of their bags or take forever to make them because we helped them. So that was super, super rewarding for us.
Are most of those bags just custom by the bike, I assume, or not necessarily?
So a bunch of bag manufacturers recently are now we don't make any more custom stuff because we can't keep up with the demand. So they have a whole assembly of saddlebags and handlebar bags. The main custom piece still to this day in the bikepacking world is custom frame bags. But outside of that, you can just make bags and purchase them, and they typically work for every bike.
Gotcha. All right, so changing the subject a little bit. Just what's your favorite trail, bikepacking or not, in Crested Butte?
Oh man, Crested Butte Trail. That's a toughie. Well, I guess we could start with just from the front door, if I have an hour, upper loop system. You can't beat it. And I live up on the mountain, so descending from Hunter Hill Road down to Whetstone Vista, and then maybe upper, or down upper, and up Whetstone Vista and back home.
Yeah.
Trail 400, probably one of my favorite trails in the valley.
How do you like riding that?
It's great.
Well, not as an out and back, I'm a 583 guy. I like to go up and over.
Yep. Yeah, so I'll go, it really depends. I'll go, up Cement Creek and then up, what is the trail called? The connector to get to the top.
583 or Crystal Peak.
Crystal Peak Trail, to
and over
to 400.
Yeah.
That's the most popular way I've done it. So, and then maybe trail that's more underrated. I love going over to Strawberry at Brush Creek. Love that trail.
Yeah, definitely a good one too.
You never see anybody out there.
Yep.
Dyke Trail, it's always a good one as well.
Also a good one for sure.
Yeah.
How about a local bikepacking route?
So, implementing Star Trail, you would go leave from Crested Butte, go up Cement Creek, go up Brush Creek, 405, Point Lookout to Double Top to Warm Springs, down to Cement Creek, then up Crystal Peak Trail, up Reno Road.
Okay.
And then descend to Taylor Park, basically. So
Okay.
you're on a little bit of road now. And then once you're up on Taylor or down in Taylor Park, you then go up to like the Taylor headwaters, and then you would camp. Essentially, like you'd pass Taylor Pass Road, keep going up,
Yeah.
and then camp somewhere where that road ends.
Yeah.
Have you been up there where like the road ends and then there's like a piece of single track that starts? And there's a bunch of motos out there.
Yeah, I've been there on a
But where that
snowmobile, actually.
road ends there's like a nice little fire pit, and there's plenty of like dry wood out there typically.
Uh-huh.
And so I'd camp there, and then next morning wake up and climb that, like, I don't know what it's called, but it's like a moto. It's kind of rough.
Right.
It's plenty of hike-a-bike.
Yeah.
To I don't know what it's called either. Just like Star. So 400, but I think it's Taylor, like Taylor Pass Trail or Taylor Pass.
Yeah.
something. I would have to look at a map.
Okay. Yeah.
To 400,
Descend that.
and then descend that and go home, and that's a good
Nice.
overnighter.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good one. So
But
if someone,
there's so many.
yeah,
good
there's, I mean,
options. It's like, it's
just
endless,
dream
yeah.
whatever you want,
Yeah,
right?
just go out to like Aberdeen and sleep at that little campsite by Aberdeen, then do Aberdeen in the morning, and then come home. And Hartman's is a mecca for bikepacking. Just park your car at the bottom there,
Gotcha.
or in town.
So if someone wants to start getting into bikepacking, where do they start?
Well, bikepacking.com, first off, has like a great resource for beginners. And if you go to their website, like, it's there right at the front page. But I guess more so, like, my advice would just be to try to, like, use volet straps and just strap like a bunch of stuff to your bike, and
Yeah.
and carry a backpack with a bunch of stuff as well, and just go out. From Crested Butte, go up to Brush Creek, that little campsite next to the junction of like 409 or 405 409 up Brush Creek.
Like up Ferris Creek then?
Yeah. You know that little campground on the left side?
Sure. Yeah. Just go there. Just
go
do
there.
something short. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because you're going to learn things the first time out
and
for
then,
sure.
And then wake up and ride Ferris or something like that.
Right.
Strawberry.
Yeah.
That's always been my advice. Keep it super simple.
Yeah. And then go from there.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense. So how about you? Future goals, races, projects that you're thinking about doing?
So Lindsay and I are going to Peru to bike pack for 3 weeks.
Wow, awesome.
Next Thursday we leave.
Awesome.
So we're
what
really
part
excited.
of Peru?
We're gonna base camp in Cusco, and we have 2 kind of like 4 or 5 day routes planned out.
Nice.
So like one just northwest of Cusco and one southeast of Cusco. So yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. It's
That'd be road or trail or a little
It's gonna
both?
be mostly dirt road, but a little bit of single track as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Beautiful country. I've
Yep.
spent a tiny bit of time there.
Yeah.
So, Crested Butte is home for you. You can call Crested Butte home. So why do you call Crested Butte home? You could be somewhere else.
Good question. Well, I've been here for 10 years now. It's home for sure because it's a third of my life.
Right.
I've lived here for quite a while. I don't know. It would definitely, like, Lindsay and I have definitely thought about like other places we'd want to live, and we're always like, why would we move? We have good
Right.
jobs, you can't beat the biking. I haven't skied as much as I'd like to because I've been fat biking. I'm a big fat biker, and it's super rewarding to do. And with the winters we've had, you're a great skier, and you find all the skiing, but I'm like more of a resort skier. I don't really like to touch the backcountry. So yeah, it's
gives you another option to bike to fat bike in the winters.
Yeah.
Where can people learn more about you?
Well, I've got a website, beltchenko.com. That's just my last name. And as far as like race stuff, I post a lot of race stuff and media on there. But if you just want to connect, Instagram, you can search Neil Beltchenko, or Facebook Neil Beltchenko, and pretty quick to respond. I respond to a lot of inquiries and questions from beginner bike packers. And I love doing that.
You're probably a little bit of a guru among that. So that's awesome though, to be able to give back and help people get going on it. Anything else I should have asked that I didn't?
No, I don't think so. I like IPAs. I love photography. It's a hobby of mine. And I love White Sox baseball, even though they suck right now.
Right on. Well, appreciate that. And one last question. Who else should I interview?
I think you should interview Beth Shaner. She is another awesome cyclist, but she is a dedicated community member in the medical field, and I think that's a super interesting piece in Crested Butte for sure.
Awesome. Appreciate it. I will look her up. Well, thanks so much for being on the Crested Butte Zone podcast, and hopefully I will see you on the trails as well, everyone else.
Yeah.
Have fun in Peru.
Thanks. Appreciate it.